This is a Ben Frank Connection presentation.
What is going on, everybody? We are back for another episode of the ABJ Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Blackwell Jr., here for another one. Very excited about this one. So if anyone's in the comments about to go nuts, this one's not live, but I still do appreciate, light the comment section up if you are watching it when this airs. Welcome once again. Anyone listening to the audio side of things too, a 5-star review goes super far, and showing that love is super appreciated. I'm stumbling over my words. I'm a little starstruck here today. This is I'm interviewing a guy who I've been listening to, him and his buddies drink some beers, have some fun, talk pro wrestling, talk pop culture, but then also talk about the world of the Cryptonaut world and the aliens and spooky paranormal. I love it all. They're very entertaining. So make sure you check links below if you want to follow me on all social media, as well as all of my guests' links as well. Cryptonaut Podcast, hellerspace.com. I pretty much can do their ad reads as well as they do for how much I've listened to them. But I don't want to waste any time. I want to bring our guest in right away. Here's Marc Storrs of the Cryptonaut Podcast.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited for this one. So you're up, obviously the Buffalo Bills hat. You're up in that upstate New York area, correct?
Yeah. We're in Auburn, so we're located. Actually, we're between like Syracuse and Buffalo. So we've got like Rochester and over towards the like the Buffalo end, and then there's like Syracuse. So yeah.
So my dad lives up that way. He lives. Honestly, I just had a brain fart of where he's is, but he works up there and then comes home every now and then. But we go up to like the Finger Lakes area. And
it's where I'm literally right near Finger Lake. I'm like
there's a bar or a brewery up there that I'm a huge fan of. It's kind of off track to begin, but it's called Warhorse Brewing Company.
Yeah, actually, is that by like Three Brothers? I think. Yes. Right. They have a really cool brewery where it's like a beer trail kind of.
This one is kind of in the middle of a field somewhere, and they do distillery, winery, and then beer, but they're all like World War II themed. They're really good. They make a beer based on their grandfather who helped like told them, like, made them who they are essentially, but he was from Hazleton, Pennsylvania, and they have a beer called the Hazleton Hero, and it's essentially a beer that tastes very similar to a Yingling lager, which is made
there you go
15 minutes from my house.
nice yeah, like Rochester is like, I'm a huge Genesee beer fan, so Rochester is Genesee beer, but yeah, Warhorse just I think it was last summer they put out like some really nice like Pilsner that was like an American Pilsner or something, and it was awesome. Like a local gas station here, actually, it's kind of like a high-end beer store carries it. But Warhorse is awesome. And the area we're full of like wineries, cheeseries, I guess is a thing, and tons of breweries, like Prison City breweries here in town, and that's the area that we're from. This is
beautiful up there, and it's very similar to Northeast Pennsylvania. The only difference, like, we're very coal region, but we're like little small towns of like populated towns in the middle of just woods. It's just woods, and then town, 25-minute drive, another small town. Upstate New York is laid out very similar.
Yeah, no, we're always like within a couple of minutes of a Walmart, a drugstore, and like a cow field. And then dairy farms, and then the Buffalo Bills Stadium's like 2 hours away. So that's pretty much how I actuate where I'm going, is how close I am to a Walmart or a cow field. So
so living in the middle of the woods where you travel those back roads from town to town and have those fields, like, that leads to a lot of ghost stories and I seen something in the woods, which kind of leads to where you guys are, the Cryptonaut Podcast. How did you guys come up with the idea of this? Now, I know, me listening, you guys have had a podcast before and you've been involved in this community for a while, and then this kind of sparred, but tell me how you guys did that to the audience.
Yeah, so we had a show for years where it was kind of like a pop culture show because, I mean, myself and Rob and Chris, we've been friends since I was in high school. Like, I graduated in like 99, so I met them like around that time. And our big bonding thing was like, music and comic books and, like Smallville when it came out. Like, myself and Chris and Rob were just like freaking out, like, oh my God, can you believe what happened on Smallville? Because that's all we had. Like, it was just Smallville. So yeah, we started a show doing that for a couple of years. Actually, I think it was almost like 4 years we did it. We just kind of got tired of kind of not rehashing the same thing, but just talking about the same thing constantly. So the entire time we were doing that show, Rob and I had met, and he was starting a website called American Monsters. So that was like his very first like kind of step into like research and publishing different articles about cryptids, and he had it all broken down into cool categories. So we were doing the website the entire time, and then at the end of the Earth's Mightiest Bastards, which was our older podcast, Derek Hayes, actually, at the time, he was part of, it was called Here There Be Monsters podcast, got a hold of us. He's like, hey, I like your website. I dig your podcast. Could you guys do like a promo or something? Yeah, and we did. And I listened to his show and I was blown away. I'm like, man, this is like hitting my like coast to coast AM Art Bell. Like, this guy's got callers calling in, all these really cool experiences. And then I'm like, man, it kind of hit me. I'm like, well, wait, we talk about, normal pop culture stuff and whatnot, but like, Rob, you research all these monsters and we have a website that we're not doing anything with. Like, why don't we just take this content and turn it into a show? And we did it kind of like as a half-assed joke. We're like, I don't know, we'll see, maybe it'll work out. And yeah, we transitioned into that show and we kind of like, I think we launched with like 3 episodes. They were pretty short. And then the ball got rolling, and now it's been, I don't even know how many years later. I think we started in like 2018. And we just continue doing it, and people just kind of got it and jumped on. And before you know it, like like our listenership grew, and we had like a Patreon, and then we kind of had to turn into a company because the Patreon got so popular, which is awesome. We appreciate that. And yeah, so it was one project that we sat for years doing nothing with, and then we took something that was kind of sitting idle and turned it into what we have now. And it kind of works. It still blows my mind to this day that many people listen to it, but it's kind of cool. I enjoy it. It's super fun. I love Rob's story. I love his stories. I love his, his writing style, the way that he narrates everything. It's great. So yeah.
The dynamic of the friendship is really cool too. Like you're kind of like, it's funny because like good friends, everyone's kind of the brunt of the joke at some point in time. You guys all kind of trade off. Except Chris. Chris is always kind of like the leader. You know what I mean? Like no one dares mess with Chris, and if they do, they're very respectful with it.
Yeah, no, because Chris can go like for the heart real quick, when you least expect it. He's my fun to push. I love poking him with stuff because like Rob's like a big bear. I can just jump on him and start slapping him around. It's not a big deal, and he can give it back to me. But Chris is like little tiny pokes, and then he gets you with something real hard, and you're like, oh God, that kind of hurt.
Yeah, that was personal. That was personal. Yeah. But the dynamic of your friendship really shines through on the podcast, and I think it's like a buddy podcast. So if you're into, I always try to relate it to like mainstream, because it's sometimes it's hard for people to attach themselves to people they don't know, especially in a podcast space, because every comedian, everyone in the entertainment field now has a podcast.
Right.
And I don't think they're all as good as they meant to be, but I think more people are infatuated with celebrities than they are everyday people. But the friendship of your podcast, of that almost that Two Bears One Cup, or Two Bears One Cup. That's definitely not the name of the podcast.
That's definitely a video you don't want to see.
Two Bears One Cave vibe of just two good friends bullshitting. But like you said, if you're into pop culture, are you into the like, hey, you guys scratch the pro wrestling itch every now and then? For me, like it's all still there, but then underlining of the stories of these pop culture and Cryptonaut stuff. And it's not just a Cryptonaut monster. Sometimes there's a ghost story in there. Sometimes there's the alien stories where is it hell or space, and that theme is kind of fun. But then the listener stories are fun, and the Patreon episodes are really good because that's when you guys really let the guard down, the beer started flowing, and then it's turned to 11. But just that aspect of the podcast is so much fun. Now, where do you guys lie on your spectrum of how much do you buy into the stories, or like, do you believe in this world, or you like? I'm in the world where I want it to all be real, but realistically, it's probably not.
Yeah, I think we all keep a pretty decent, like a healthy skepticism about it. I definitely tend to get more wrapped up in the story, and I kind of start get going and believing more in it. But ultimately, though, I think that we're all pretty healthy skeptics about it. Like, it's, a lot of like listener stories, for instance, that's just like listeners sending us their experiences. So we're very like respectful of that. Okay, this is what this person experienced, and we might say like, well, was this something that maybe they misinterpreted or like misidentified? But everyone's experience, it's kind of like a personal thing. So we just kind of take it, kind of analyze it, dissect it, see where we're coming at from it. But I think overall, we all have a healthy skepticism with it, because you don't want to be a true believer. Which, as a guy that has a paranormal podcast, I probably shouldn't be saying that, but being a true believer is probably just as bad as being like a debunker. Like, if you come in automatically being like, yes, everything is real, or no, everything is not, you're not really giving enough nuance there, and like enough room for things to kind of like, have possibilities. So, I mean, I'm definitely big into the whole like Keelian, like Jacques Vallée side of things, where Rob is more like cryptozoology is this, and aliens are this, and ghosts are this. I kind of tend to say it's more of a blend. And then Chris just tells us both that we're dumb. So it works out.
It's a great balance. And that's another thing you kind of touched on too, is even though there is a healthy of that comedy aspect when you are telling these stories and you're like, what if it was just this? And you come up with this crazy theory of just what is it? The spores or something crazy, and that you're hallucinating, or
we use that all the time. It's the it's like the whatever
swamp gas.
Like swamp gas, or like weird bread spores that like make you hallucinate. Or we also go to like diabetes, because
diabetes is the one.
Yeah, like Rob's mother's is a diabetic, and when her sugar gets all messed up, she'll start to hallucinate. My grandmother also, when she was alive, she was a pretty severe diabetic, and she would like talk to people that weren't there, like see stuff in the walls, and we're like, oh man, Graham's blood sugar's real whacked out, or no, it's really bad. Yeah. So yeah, we always have diabetes.
You have those theories too, is when people are under those hallucinogenics, are going through those moments where they are hallucinating. Is it hallucinogenic? Are they hallucinating, or are they tapping into something we don't know of? You know what I mean?
If I eat like a 200 milligram edible, I'm definitely grabbing the devil by the horns and I'm riding it somewhere, because you don't know. I mean, your perception is such a weird thing, because like we all kind of, we all uniformly agree on what reality is and what our perception is, but it's not necessarily what everybody experiences. So, some of these cases where you might have someone that's going through like a multi-step, I guess like well, maybe something like Mothman, where like it's this larger flap of things that are happening, where there's multiple instances across the same area of different phenomena. You got like the Mothman, you got the grinning men, you got the poltergeist, you got the weird bloodmobile thing that the Mothman's chasing. Like, is that people experiencing the same phenomena at a different level, or is that just how it projects itself to you and how you're perceiving it? Which Rob hates when I say that, but it's okay. He's not here. He can't tell me no. So yeah. It's the whole thing with like reality and perception is kind of interesting with this, because I've never really experienced anything super creepy or super crazy. Maybe a couple of things here or there. Rob lived in a haunted house for a little bit that was kind of creepy, but we don't know. I mean, I don't think I ever spent more than a half an hour sober there. So, I mean, I don't, even during the day, like, I don't know, what it could have been, but yeah, it's all in how, like, you interpret it, or how it interprets you.
And you are insanely respectful to people's stories when they put them out there. So when people are like, hey, here's my experience, here's my story, I think they understand that there is going to be elements of the comedy added into that, because obviously you got to keep people entertained, but you're not disrespectful to them and their story. The one that stands out to me, I believe it was a Patreon episode, Evil Science and Magic Buddies, was when the guy was hunting and fell out of a tree and hurt his back. And then the two Bigfoot came and like picked him up, and the Bigfoot breastfed him.
Oh yeah, we did that with Derek Hayes. Yeah, he played he played us that clip. He was like saving it for us, and he played it, and we're like, what? Like, you got,
because you guys actually heard that for the first time, and you guys reacting to that story I had to pull over. I was crying laughing in my car.
Yeah, no, when I think, we went on Derek's show. I think I went on his Patreon, and he played some clips, and then he came on ours, and we played some. And when I heard that story, I was just like, oh. And with his show specifically, what I really like is that he has the call-in aspect. So people call in and then he reacts to the call. So you can actually hear it in their voice. Like you can hear them, like telling the story, kind of like back in the day, like Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, where like people would call in and like Art, I mean, it was live on the air. So Art could like really get into it and like grill them and sometimes not be so super respectful, or at sometimes just let them tell their story and just kind of see where it goes. But I think if people are going to take the chance to send in their encounters to us, we like to keep it super respectful and just, and we do have fun with it. And we're in touch with them, like if somebody sends us a story, we'll be like, oh, hey, just so you know, we're going to be doing it on this day. And then sometimes you might have like follow-up questions and stuff like that. And sometimes we occasionally will like talk to somebody on the mic, just like interview. And we don't ever put those out as podcasts, just in case we have questions. We don't want to like, say, hey, here's an hour and a half conversation we had with this person and let's just toss it out there. But just to get more information, see what it is. Because sometimes too, what we found out, through doing this is sometimes people experience very similar, weird encounters with, as Rob would say, enigmatic entities. Like we had a woman who had an experience with Count Von Count, the actual puppet, like some weird manifestation coming into a room and like tormenting her. And then there was someone that experienced something extremely similar like years later when they heard the episode. They're like, oh my God, I had this weird encounter with Count Von Count, which scares the shit out of me. And yeah, stuff like that is, super, super interesting. And it's nice to let people tell their story. Cause I think, if you experience something like that, you kind of want to put it out there and see if similar people, like you're looking for a community, depending on how if it's a matter of fear or if it's just a matter of, I feel kind of weird about this and I don't want to be the only one that have ever experienced this. It's kind of cool to let people, do that. But also, have a, good time talking about it. So
it's absolutely bonkers that you brought that one up, because that was the next one I was going to say about episode that just, I was hooked.
Dude.
Wait, there's people who are experiencing Muppets. Like,
Muppets. More than one.
Yeah,
which like, is really weird.
More than one person in different parts of the world have experienced Muppets, like puppets from Jim Henson's creation.
Yeah.
Walk out of their closet or come through their bedroom windows.
Yeah.
And communicate like on a more than one occasion.
Yeah. Yeah, like, no, it's a strange phenomenon. I mean, there's even more. There's like Big Bird that people have experienced, like Big Bird and like Smurfs and all kinds of weird things, which, it's not uncommon actually it's not that it's common, but when stuff like that does happen, I think kind of in the field, people sort of like deduce that down to being like, well, it could be an entity taking the shape of something that like you're familiar with, which if it's Count Von Count, I mean, do better. I know the Greys are like gray aliens are like notorious for doing that allegedly. But it's just bizarre that you'd pick a puppet. Like, I mean, there was an instance with like Yoda, like a woman woke up and like Yoda was looking at her and like screamed. You're like, what? Like, why?
Honestly, I'm more comfortable with the Count than I am if like Grover comes in. I feel if Grover or Cookie Monster come in, I'm having a bad day.
Yeah, the Count seems like he might be like smaller, where like if you have to get into it, at least like it's a proper kicking and he's taken care of. But
I think Grover's lanky arms.
Yeah, he's got weird arms. He's probably really good on his back. He can just get you, clench you up, and then that's it. He's gonna
throw you in a triangle. It's over. Like,
that's totally. And God forbid if it's like Dr. Teeth or something like that from the band, like you're done. That's it. There's
you're having a bad day.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some episodes to you that really stand out that like you Rob, because here's the thing too with the podcast, there is the Mothmans and there's the Bigfoots and there's these stories that come out, but then there's ones where you're like, I've never heard of this, and then you're thinking to yourself, these dudes have lost it. The stories they're making stuff up at this point, and then you go research it, and it 100% exists, and it's a real story, and it's just as crazy as it is presented. You're like, wow, what's one of those stories that really stand out to you that you're like, that one, the drive home wherever you recorded that day was you looked at the world a little differently.
I mean, honestly, the listener stories with the Count Von Count is probably the one that hit me the hardest, because it was just like tormenting this poor girl. I mean, if we're talking more like, I'm trying to think of like a non-listener story. Oh, so Sam the Sandown Ghost Clown actually is one that really stuck with me. It was one of my favorites because I had seen that illustration from that cover of a Bufora article forever and just never even like looked into it. And then there's this guy from across the pond, as they say, over there in the UK. His name's Tom G. He does it the paranormalworld.fandom.com, and I think it's Ghosts of Magonia. And we happened to be talking, and he's like, "Oh, check this out. I think that Rob would dig this." And I read a paragraph, and I'm like, "What?" Like a weird clown ghost wooden alien came down and talked to these kids. So as much as Count Von Count freaked me out, probably Sam the Sandown Ghost Clown is the one that I was just like, "Oh wow, that's like that's insane." Like it's such a bizarre story. And we actually had somebody write in a listener experience where they encountered an entity similar to Sam, not necessarily the same, but close. So much of a similarity that I'm going to just say it was probably whatever Sam is. It was probably one of his ilk. So yeah.
There's another one that when I jumped into the podcast, I came in around the Mothman episodes because it was a trilogy.
That's like an 8-part series.
It was insane.
And if anybody out there wants to experience it, our Patreon feed is on Spotify, and there is an 8-hour cut for free on there. So you don't got to pay no big Patreon bucks to listen to this. It's just there for free for the public, but it's a full 8-hour cut. A listener of ours put it together, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is insane."
That's a trip right there.
Yeah, that's a hike. That took a lot out of us, actually.
But I came around there. My buddy Andy Hedder, who's also a huge Cryptonaut, he's actually on your website.
We
used to record the podcast. He took a photo. It is what the hell are those sunglasses? I own a pair because I got them because of you guys.
Pit Vipers, yeah.
Pit Vipers. We bought generic ones because we can't afford the real ones. So we bought generic Pit Vipers, and we took photos in front of our banner because every time we would do our wrestling podcast, we would throw out to you guys.
Yeah.
But then I listened for a while, and then my ADHD kicked in, and I was current. And then life happens and content, and I'm traveling a lot, so I wasn't able to listen for a couple months. But then I was like, I'm gonna go back and listen from the beginning. So I'm trying to go backwards and then try to meet myself again. But you guys are so far ahead currently. I'm like overwhelmed, but I'm trying my best. But there's a story that was really big on Twitter, and I was obsessed with it. And now it's being made into a movie. The Timothy, the with the little kid with the dented in head. Have you ever heard of this story?
No, I haven't. Really? There's a kid with a dented in head? Is it like this paranormal thing? Or?
It's more of a paranormal, but this guy has this little ghost, Timmy or whatever, that keeps haunting him in his apartment. And he has video proof of it. Yes. And then he has like photos of it. And the kid comes to him in his dreams and all this craziness.
I do remember hearing about this now. Yeah, so they're actually making like a movie about that?
Yeah, they're supposed to be making a movie.
Creepy. Yeah. Ghost kids freak me out. So that's now that you mentioned it, the description there, I totally remember hearing about that. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, it's funny when you listen to a podcast or you get caught up in that or you listen to a lot, then your algorithm on your phone just throws you all of this wild stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and especially when you're in the conspiracy network, and then your phone just blows up with like the Earth is flat. The alleged moon.
Dude, that's my favorite, man. The alleged moon. Like I don't know. There's apparently an eclipse happening. I don't know what I don't know what you guys think about it, but whatever. If you want to believe in the moon, I guess that's up to you.
It's just Galactus up there.
Oh yeah, dude. Every time I even say the alleged anything, Rob's eyes just roll so hard out of his head, and I'm like, buddy. You haven't been there, have you? Neither have I. I don't know. And he was like, hey, how do the oceans work? I don't know, dude. You tell me. He's like, it's the moon. I'm like, I don't know. Is it really? I'm not sure.
I'll tell you what, though. If Rob were to ever start a cult, I would probably join it. Because the way he spins the story and he adds an element of realism to the story, you're like, I can buy it. Because he's not buying into it fully, but he's like, this is what makes sense to me of this being a real thing. And you're like, I subscribe to that. Like,
no, totally. Yeah. I mean, I tell him all the time, man, like he has the makings of a cult leader. I mean, I'm like, dude, Patreon's fine, but man, we could really become like a multi-tiered, like triangle business.
Yeah, actually, my Discord community is called the Cult of ABJ.
There you go. Nice.
It's weird to me that people support your content the way they do, and like I've never experienced that growing up, where it's like, oh, people care enough about you to give you their hard-earned money because they like your content, and that you're insanely thankful for it. But I'm like, I feel like a cult leader. Like, so that was the joke.
Nice.
But one thing I'm very proud of is my community, and my community is a drop in the bucket compared to yours. You guys' community is fantastic. Like
they're
you
awesome,
guys, the Facebook community, like you guys didn't even start that. Someone started that for you guys, and like,
yep.
So you just logged on to Facebook one day and there's a group page with thousands of people who just support your content.
Yeah, actually there was the gentleman out, he was out in California. He started it and then he kind of had some people give him a hand with it. And it was just like a listener page, like, like, hey, we're listeners of the show and we all kind of into the same content. So we can just, get together in this area and kind of share stuff. And yeah, it's super cool. I mean, I've even found like Reddits. There's like I think like 1 or 2 Cryptonaut Reddits. And I'm like, oh, what is this? Like if somebody has like a subreddit for us, like, oh man, that's awesome. Like the only real community that we actually like curate is Discord because it's tied to our Patreon. And we have some good buddies of ours that like run that, they like moderate it for us. But even that, the fact that people pay money to get access to a Discord to like hang out and just talk with us or talk with each other, it's like, wow, okay, cool. I mean, you kind of get that weird imposter syndrome where it's like, man, I got to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah. Like, there's thousands of people who love me.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's super cool. It's awesome. It's one of those things that it happened. It was gradual that, we kind of picked an audience up. And then obviously Rob, like with the guys who live like Astonishing Legends and then like Rob Christofferson and then Derek over there at Monsters Among Us, like just kind of, talking with each other and talking about the show. And then as it kind of grew, it just, the fan base itself, the listener base just grew like, pretty well. And now, it's great. There's plenty of people that are out there that, that support us monthly on Patreon and they get the, all the bonus content and then they have access to the, the Discord. And yeah, there's like, like you said, like the Facebook fan group, which is super cool. And then there's a couple of subreddits and, social media. It's one of those things like when we started off doing the show, I was super big on social media. I'm like, I got to post and I got to do this and I got to do that. But just like as life gets in the way, and then kind of as your audience grows, like it's great to grow an audience because you're like, yes, cool, we got people that like us. But for every person that's going to like you out there, someone is going to super hate you. And they're going to let you know about it every day in your DMs. So yeah, there's like a line there where it's like social media is great. And I think it's awesome to connect with people. And I love it. I love getting DMs from like, listeners, people that support us. But then there's that aspect of like, well, I got to go to work in the morning and I got a wife and I got 2 kids and I got a lot of things that I got to do. And I got to also edit this podcast and get the boys together in the studio to record. So I can't spend a whole ton of time, doing a bunch of social media stuff. But I do enjoy the engagement and it is fun. It's just, you got to kind of find a balance there, especially now that I have like young kids. I'm trying to teach them like, you like your TikToks and your Snapchats. I can't figure out what the hell Snapchat is for, but whatever you're out there doing, like, you got to kind of have a fine line there of like, you don't want to get, too much into it. I always tell the guys, like, I don't believe my own hype. So yeah, so it's fine.
Well, that's one of the things like listening from the beginning and then kind of picking up where I left. You can see like here in your guys, the way you conduct yourselves of when things started kicking off. And I felt like there was a point in time there when things were kicking off. And this is not like a knock to anybody, but it felt like Rob was like, I just want to read my books. I want to tell my stories.
Yeah.
And Chris was more like, I'll come if I'm available.
Yeah, exactly.
and then you're kind of
case.
Yeah. And then Chris and you're like running the social media, trying to be that mediator between the listener and the content.
Yeah.
And then when it started getting to the point where Patreon was blowing up and you were getting a lot, you were like, people like, yeah, you said that imposter syndrome. I can kind of sense it in you that you were at a point. And if I'm wrong, tell me. But you kind of had the thing where like people are giving us their hard-earned money. We have to like do something to contribute to that. And everyone's like, just keep doing what we're doing, baby. Just ride it out.
That's exactly it. It's like it kind of especially with Patreon, like it happened to a point where I'm like, shit, that's a decent amount of money that we need to become a business to like actually file like taxes and get a lawyer and an accountant and stuff like that, which thank God we have an awesome lawyer and we have an awesome accountant. They're my favorite. They're right here in town. They're local. We're keeping it local with them. So I see them all the time. So they're super cool. But yeah, I mean, when people are paying to listen to you and your friends talk about dumb shit, that it's what we talk about normally. Like if Chris and Rob and I were hanging out anywhere, I mean, me and Chris have been in band. We were in bands together for years. It was the same thing we would do during practice. Or if we got together at Rob's house and hung out on the porch, it was the same thing. But we're like, oh wow, people are like paying to like actually like listen to us do this. And we do have like a flow. Well, like a workflow. So like obviously Rob researches the stories and then he brings them to us. He narrates them. We discuss them. I do all the Patreon research during the week where I find the fun stories. And then I present them to the guys. Rob reads them. So we have like a pretty cool, like, way that we do this show. And we're going to get into video, which is nice too, because the kind of, video's obviously a thing now. It's been a thing for a while. So
I can't wait.
It's going to be super fun. So yeah, we kind of have like a nice workflow with it. And the biggest thing with us is like, obviously I have a wife and kids and a career, and I have all kinds of things going on. So it's a matter of finding kind of like with social media, like a balance. And like Rob, he takes care of his mother and he babysits like his young niece and nephew. So for all of us, it's like a balance of like, okay. And, and Chris, he's there, every week doing it, but he also, he gets sick on kind of like on a pretty like regular basis, just because he has like a really crappy like immune system and everything. Yeah. So like with him, and then of course the pandemic happened, and that was like good for nobody, because like Rob and Chris are definitely two people that I'm like, oh man, I can't be getting sick. But yeah, no, it's one of those, this kind of the way that it kind of kicked into high gear. It was kind of fun. It was cool. Kind of just took off. And I mean, the people that are on the Patreon, they're like, wow, you guys do an extra bonus episode like every week. And, it's super cool. I guess some people have Patreons that they don't do like a super ton of bonus content, which I think one episode a week is really kind of easy to do for us. So it's not like anything, major.
I'm in that thing where I'm not big enough yet that like I put stuff on Patreon and maybe one person listens to it out of the maybe 5 or 6 people that are on there, and then they're like, we're just here for the general support aspect because we like you. We don't really need extra content. We're here because we enjoy you. Yeah. And I'm like, and I'm at that struggle now because we just got monetized on YouTube. I just got monetized on YouTube after 6 years, and it's like, I don't want to paywall your audience because they got you to the dance, but then also the one where it's a really fine line to try to juggle. And as a content creator, it's something that a lot of people don't take into consideration of like how much you are appreciative of your audience, but you also don't want to like, I love you monetarily this much more as a listener. You know what I mean?
Yeah, even like doing the tiers, like we have like, like the $1 tier is, 1 bonus audio and a shout out, and the $5 tier is 4 bonus audios and a shout out during the month. So, but there's plenty of people that are like on the 1 and the 5 that are like, I've never heard any of your bonus audio. I support Patreons for like podcasts. One of them in particular that does a ton of video work. I think I've watched maybe 2 videos. I just listen to like the audio stuff. I mean, the videos are fine, but I just like on the $5 tier, they offer videos. I'm like, yeah, no, they're kind of cool, but I just like to listen to whatever audio they're doing. So I think everyone that supports anybody, you kind of go there to figure out like what you want, and there's plenty of people that just support money and they're like, I've never even heard any of your bonus stuff. So yeah, some people just like to support us,
I didn't listen to a lot of the bonus audio until some of them were dropped as regular content, and then I was like, oh, this is a different vibe. Like it's still what I love about the Cryptonaut podcast, but the bonus content is a little different. Like there's a reason, like you guys found a creative way to make it different than the regular show, which I think is kind of cool too.
Yeah, which the secret to that is that there's no editing, and Rob doesn't have to read anything that he wrote. That's all we do is like, Rob, you didn't write this, you're just gonna read it, we're gonna have fun with it, there you go. And it's a totally different vibe, and I mean not totally different vibe, but it's definitely much looser than like the regular show for sure.
Yeah. So now starting this podcast in 2018, where everything was kind of like, you're crazy if you think of this, or like, oh, you're either fine line, like this is completely fake, there's no such thing as any of this, and then there's the people who are like, there's something here, here, and then we hit a part in the world where our actual government agencies are saying,
oh yeah,
some of this is not bullshit, and you're like, wait, what? Like,
yeah, it's been like the slowest burn ever, because I think like in our first, I mean like our second episode, one of our episodes that we did early on, it was like the original article from the New York Post, I think, about like the Tic Tac videos when they like first came out, when they got declassified. But yeah, and then over the next couple of years, including up to now, with everything with David Grush and Jeremy Corbell and like George Knapp, it's like, so wait a minute, you guys like know about this stuff? Like you really do? I mean, yeah, we kind of, as an old school like UFO head, and just like again like coast to coast, and like dipping my toes into conspiracies here and there, you're kind of like yeah, the government knows, and then you're kind of in the back of your mind like, I don't know anything, there's probably nothing there, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, we know, and you're like, God damn it, like there we go. Now we can't go to the dance and have fun. Now this is gonna be like a thing. Like I always joke with the guys, I'm like, man, like disclosure is cool, but like if it ever does come out that there's non-human intelligences and like UAPs, and all of a sudden like what we talk about is not like super fun, where it's like the news, I'm gonna be like, oh boy, we gotta talk about ghosts. That's it. Because from that point, it's like, oh God, it is really interesting though to see, just how kind of the government was kind of strong-armed into being like, yeah, okay, no, there's things out here that we don't really know about. Which if you do follow the trail all the way back to like Blue Book and Grudge and, you know, like even like Area 51 and all that, like there's definitely, they've been involved with quite a lot of stuff, and which you'd want them to be. They're your government, but at the same time, it's like, if you're back engineering some alien crafts, like, I don't know, man, include us, you know, like, I mean, let us know, like, is that how we got, you know, diodes and CDs? Like, what's, you know,
it's kind of hard to have a power structure when there's something smarter and more intelligent than you. You're like, wait, why are we listening to you guys? Like, all hail the Greys.
Yeah, really. That's kind of one of those things where it's like, man, if there really is like that, the government, if it does come out that they are like in some sort of like contractual negotiations with non-human intelligence, it's like, so wait a minute, you talk to people higher than you? Like, aren't you the government? Like, isn't there supposed to be no one higher than you? And yeah, no, it's gotten pretty crazy over the last couple of years. And but you know, even with that, I think with the whole, you know, the whole ethos of staying you know, like cautiously skeptical about it. Like Grush very well could just be getting fed a whole ton of crap just to put it out there to be like a misinformation agent. Not that he's doing it on purpose, but that if somebody sees him and plants, you know, gives him the ideas or whatever, he just kind of goes out there and does it. Because everything that I've, you know, read, listened to, and seen from him, he's very dedicated to it. And he's like, yeah, no, we need to get this out there. But there is that possibility that he could just be getting lied to. And he's doing his part by being the whistleblower and going out there and doing it. But if the information is disinformation or misinformation, then that's just a bigger part of how they kind of dupe the, you know, citizens of the United States into not knowing what's going on. So
yeah, I'm a huge Blink fan, and when Tom left to go be professionally crazy, I was so heartbroken. I was like, this guy is chasing aliens instead of making music of the band I like. And then his organization is like a key thing of a lot of disclosure. Like,
to the stars. Yeah.
All right, Tom, I'm sorry. One more time.
Really. Hell, where are you? Like, come back to the band.
Yeah, we believe you and your aliens. Can you please come back and play guitar?
It was always one of those things where like you'd heard about that with that band with Blink-182. You're like, man, that guy's like really like seriously into like UFOs and stuff like that. And then it kind of came out with it, and you're like, oh wow, like, that's kind of interesting. Right. Yeah, the To the Stars Academy definitely played a pretty big part in the whole disclosure process. I kind of wish that, like, and I know when you're dealing with disclosure, obviously there's like legal aspects and stuff like that to it. I get it. But like, I kind of wish that maybe they would just go a little bit more like forward with it. Cause I know that they kind of approach it in like a multifaceted way of like, well, we're going to do some books that are kind of about this, that are sort of tied to real stuff, but they do like a fictionized version of it. Like, I get it. I understand you kind of have to, but just put it out there. You know, like, just stop beating around the bush and put it out there. But it is kind of cool that the guy from Blink-182 was like a huge, you know, UFO guy.
My Blink-182 pop shrine right there.
There you go. Nice.
It's Blink-182 and Ghost. That's my two.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah, I saw you were in that cool like Ghost Misfits shirt.
Well, I purposely did the Misfits one because
nice. I mean, I'm sure Glenn Danzig is definitely into UFOs and aliens, but I don't know if I want to know his take on them, honestly.
Him and his tiny legs.
Some tiny Danzig-esque.
I was going through because I own, this is not even a bullshit, like I own probably close to 700 to 800 t-shirts. It's either pro wrestling, it's like a culty cool t-shirts, or it's like I have like 8 Cryptonaut podcast t-shirts.
I noticed. I saw the photos of you and Andy. Yeah, I'm like, man, these guys got more Cryptonaut merch than I do. Like, holy crap!
I was actually wearing one the last 3 or 4 episodes. I do like a lot of live streams, like when Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or Dynamite are on. I do these like hangouts where like people come in and just can hang out or bullshit, or we just talk wrestling or talk anything. Nice. And a few times I've been rocking my Cryptonaut stuff because I'm a fan of what you guys do. It's awesome. Now, when you guys record, I have 2 quick questions, and then we'll get into like off podcast stuff. But
sure.
When you guys record, is it like with the pandemic when you were able to record in the comfort of your home and had that thing? Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy that better, or do you like the fact when you guys are all together in one location?
Yeah, no, we all hate doing like the remote recording, especially back then because we didn't really have like the technology to like do it. So we had like what are they called? Like Blue Yeti mics, and
yeah,
they're really hard to use, like super hard.
If
And
you
Rob,
don't fine-tune them, you will hear someone's heartbeat the whole episode.
oh, believe me, there's plenty of episodes you can hear Rob breathing through his eyeballs. Yeah, it's terrible. It's really bad. No, with the pandemic, because nobody really knew what the hell was going on. Like, so we're like, all right, and obviously with Rob and Chris, having just health issues and like immune system issues, of like, well, I'm a sewer worker, that's what I do, so like my immune system's fairly
You're a superhero.
well.
Yeah,
I'm the hero of sludge of human excrement. So I'm like out there working with everybody, and I constantly kept getting exposed to it, whatever. But I ended up being fine. Everything ended up working out. But no, the remote recording was really a pain. We do it now, but we have better technology. Like we have better mics. We have a better system of doing it. We obviously got webcams, because for the longest time we would do it with no webcams, and that was next to impossible. So, but whenever we can, we like to do it in person. But now with our new setup, if we have to do remote, it's definitely much easier. And depending on if we're busy or we can't get together or whatever, we might do a remote here, here or there. But yeah.
Now, the other thing is, we'll kind of go back to the alien thing. There's a theory out that I kind of subscribe to more, is that they're not so much living in another planet, in another area, and then traveling to us, where it's all like linear, like time is linear, and they're just in a different like dimension or realm of us.
Oh, totally, yeah.
But we all exist inside the same space, but in different forms or frequencies.
Like, just like multi-dimensional. Yeah, like I mean,
and then they're saying like the nuclear wars where it kind of really sparked that, where it's like, yo, your stuff is like bleeding into ours. You got to chill with that stuff. Like it's a weird theory, but I kind of subscribe to that. And how you guys say that cryptids are kind of like aliens lost animals.
Yeah, that's a big one. That Earth is like an SPCA for the aliens.
They break through the portal somehow, and they end up here like Stranger Things. They were like, wait, what the hell? And then they just go back.
No, the whole interdimensional theory, like I've loved that ever since I first heard about that. I'm like, oh, this explains so much, because it's not that they're extraterrestrial; they're just interdimensional, so that they're existing in the same sort of. Like you said, like say it's the same sort of space, just in a dimension adjacent to us, which I think is super interesting. And I mean,
the theory that they're from the future, and they're us in the future coming back to tell us to chill out.
Yeah, the Greys, they're big with that. With the Greys, or like, it's us in the future, and we evolved to be these weird giant head, no genitalia having little
It would make sense that they're really obsessed with people's genitals, because we live in a time now where that's a big talking point. We care more about, like, instead of people having livable wages, we're like, wait, what's in your pants? Tell me.
Exactly. It does make sense.
It's starting to check out.
Yeah, since they don't have any too. So the whole interdimensional thing is awesome, and even cryptids. I mean, I kind of tend to think I mean, all the time, I guess, honestly, that even cryptids can be like an interdimensional creature. Like, I'm pretty big into like the interdimensional shaman Bigfoot. Everybody hates me for it, but that's okay. I'm fine. I'm gonna die on this hill, so by myself. It's okay. I'll be here. But I mean, there is like science, and there is like quantum theory and string theory that kind of goes into that could explain it. And because there's just a little bit there with it, I'll just run with it and just be like, no, that's what it is. But I guess it kind of makes more sense that they would be more local to us than to actually from like a different like a planet or like a different star system, that they would actually be like here. And even when David Grush brought that up in a Joe Rogan interview, I'm like, did he really just invoke Magonia and Jacques Vallée? Like, he really did. He even talked about like, this non-human intelligence showing itself as like, fairies back in like, ancient times, or even like, he said like a hairy bipedal hominid. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And he was dropping things, and I'm like, man, that's really specific, like really specific to be talking about.
It is odd that like different cultures like have drawings and things of creatures like dragons, like the fact that like other cultures have been drawing the depiction of dragons, and they didn't have the communication to speak to each other, but they see the same things. You're like, that's weird. You know what I mean? Like that's. I don't know.
There's a lot of weird historical stuff like that. Even if you go into the Bible with like Ezekiel and the wheel, and you get into all that, like if you go total Sukalos and get into like ancient aliens, like there's a lot of really bizarre stuff out there. Like I actually was lucky enough to go to Mexico and like see Chichen Itza. And that's the one that they always talk about. And like you're there and you're like, you've got to be kidding me. Like this is pre-power tools and like electricity. Like this is unbelievable. So of course you're like, it's aliens, which honestly it probably, who knows? It probably wasn't. It's just that people, are just that good. They're just that artistic, or they have that much engineering knowledge back in the day even. So probably because we
have the skill to do it.
Yeah, and because we have iPhones and in YouTube and webcams, we're the greatest technological thing ever. I can't build a pyramid. I have no idea what even.
I can't read a tape measure, but I can Google anything,
dude. I use tape measure constantly, and I have it marked off. I have one of the ones that actually gives you like everything, all your markings on there. Yeah, I'm not trying to do some weird fraction. Like, get out of here, dude. I need to know.
Now you can just take your phone to it, and it'll measure it from your phone to the camera. You're like, what?
Yes. Yeah, I've actually used that a couple of times where I just like, what is this? Measure it real quick, but yeah, no, that's pretty neat.
So when you're not tending to children and talking cryptids with your boys, what are some things, Marc, that you're into outside of that realm? Like you have a whole room full of stuff back there. There's a lot to dissect in a human background. What are some of your passions or things you're into?
I've been a long time collector of so many different things. Like as a kid, for me, what got me going into everything was there's this local comic book shop called Kim's Comics and records. So that dove me headlong into music and comic books. And this is like back in like the early 90s, like 91, 92. So like when Spawn, like when McFarlane left and launched like Spawn, like I was there for it. And I was just like, oh my God, creator owned and Spawn. And this is unbelievable. And it was like a great time for comics, like the death of Superman. In this little store, again, Kim's Comics, they're no longer here. And then there's a couple other like local shops I would go to. And comics just got me into everything. I mean, especially like music. It just launched me, collecting, like action figures, or like getting into punk rock, or like getting into metal, and then eventually hardcore stuff. Collecting has been like the biggest thing for me. Like this back that you're seeing, everything back, that's not even like a 16th of it. I mean, there's so much more over here. There's a lot more on the other side. Like there's a ton of stuff going on. But yeah, being a collector, and I've been a collector forever. I remember I met my wife back in like 2007, and she had come over to my apartment at the time, and it kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh man, I've never really had to explain to a girl like why I have so many toys everywhere. So I'm like, and actually she thought I had a kid. She was like, so you have kids? And I'm like, no, these are mine. These are all my toys.
I'm not sharing them.
Yeah, no, you can't touch them. And it might be kind of weird, but these are all my toys. So yeah, collecting is probably the biggest thing, whether it's, action figures, vinyl, comic books, tons of Funko Pops. It's a huge issue. I have an app to track everything.
I sold my first collection to start. I pulled a Kevin Smith. I sold like all of my collectibles so I can start podcasting.
Oh my God, really? Oh man.
I wanted to do this.
Actually though, I've sold stuff to get equipment. Totally. Like if I needed, like actually this microphone, I think I sold a couple like collectible things on like Facebook Marketplace. I think get a couple $100, grab a new mic. So yeah, no, I mean, I get it. I mean, when Kevin Smith tells that story, it's just like, oh man, your entire comic collection, really? Like, you didn't even do part of it? Like, just do a little bit of it, like a.
But he rolled on himself, and he said, one day I'll be able to buy this all back and then some. And now
yeah. But no, I think that's pretty much it. Just collecting and being a dad it's all my time right there. Honestly, it's just my kids, my wife are pretty much all my time. Obviously, I have a full-time job that I do too, but that's Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. Occasionally, I get called in when things break and catch on fire or drown. But so yeah, and I love collecting stuff to the point that like the entire basement of our house is mine, and it's just full of all this
Love
stuff.
that.
Yeah, my wife's like, well, I wish I could have a basement too. I'm like, I bet you do.
Now does your passion for the cryptozoology and Cryptonaut and supernatural and your collectibles, does that bleed into your family? Like, is your wife and kids in this, or are you just weird dad?
No, I'm just a weird dad, honestly. Like my wife does not and will not listen to our show. It's the biggest ongoing joke between us, because she'll tell people, "Oh yeah, no, my husband has this show. It's about aliens or whatever." They'll go listen to it. Like, "Oh my god, it's so awesome." He's like, "I've never listened to it. I don't know. People tell me it's good." So,
yeah,
which is, I think it's hilarious, because like, especially with her and I, it's we're so different with everything. Like, we're literally like night and day. Like, she's educated, she's a nurse, she's a diabetic, she does actually diabetic education in Syracuse, and we're completely not, like, if you see us together, you're like, who's taking the prisoner out for a walk? Like, why is the nurse hanging out with this felon? But yeah, I mean, she actually is big into like true crime stuff, and I am too. I do love like true crime stuff, but she's into that. But yeah, no, the kids, I mean, they're into like some alien things here and there. But my son plays a bunch of Xbox, and he's into sports, and my daughter does dance and likes Barbie and hangs out and does stuff. And it's kind of neat, actually. We kind of we all have like our own thing. But all of us are like, totally willing to check out the other person's stuff and, go hang out.
That's awesome.
Do whatever.
There's nothing cooler than getting somebody into something you're into when they're like, I'm interested in this. Tell me about it. You're like,
oh yeah,
sit down, little one. This is the story of Star Wars. Like,
yeah. And even like, as my son, he's 13 now, but as he gets older, he introduces me to stuff that I'm like, oh man, that's like really cool. Like super good. Especially like music stuff. Cause I mean, I love music, but like, I'm kind of stuck to a certain point.
Same.
Where I'm like, okay, I like what I like, and that's it. But then he'll introduce me to like all these new artists, and I'm like, oh man, this is actually like really cool. Like, this is cool to hear like new stuff. And I had to introduce him to stuff occasionally. Like, and it's funny, I got my daughter into like the Dead Kennedys like really hard. Like, she loves the Dead Kennedys, but she also loves Taylor Swift. So I'm like, what a great tour! If Jello Biafra could go out there with Taylor Swift, like, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah,
she got me into Taylor Swift, which is hilarious.
My buddy's currently on tour right now with Guar. He's their guitar tech. And,
nice.
And it's funny because like he got me into I knew of Guar, but I like my first experience of Guar like was seeing them live, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, they've been around forever. How did I now just like, as a pro wrestling fan, you give me a gimmick or you give me something, I'm running with it. You know what I mean? And I fell in love with them. I'm like, these are so much fun. Yeah. So it is cool when people introduce new things to you, especially if they've been around forever. It's just, it's a joy in pop culture that it's fun to pass along.
It's funny. Guar was one of those things that like I'd always seen, and like I'd see like stuff on MTV and like Maury Povich or whatever, and I was always kind of like into them. But then my younger brother really got into them, and he started getting all the movies. And I'm like hanging out, I'm like, yeah, I'll check this out. And I'm like, holy shit, this is genius.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to actually, I think I saw them 2 or 3 times with Odorous before Dave Brockie passed away.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable to see him live. I'm like, this is like, and I love gimmicky stuff too. I love the Misfits. I mean, Ghost, Kiss.
I love Ghost.
Yeah, for the love of God, Kiss is like the most gimmicky band ever. But like, I love that like showmanship and just like the cool like theater of it, which is why like when I was a kid, I loved like wrestling. But yeah, when I saw Guar, I'm like, man, this is like a whole. It's funny. I was just listening to like This Toilet Earth the other day, as a matter of fact. And actually, a couple of years. I mean, it was more than a couple of years. It was a while back. I got to hang out with Sleazy P. Martini at a comic convention, and my son was with me and hated him. Hated Sleazy P. He like wouldn't talk to him. Hated him. But then when he'd get out of his Sleazy P and he was just being Don. He thought that Don was a cool guy, but then he had to go get his Sleazy P outfit. My son's like, I hate Sleazy P. I like wouldn't talk to him or anything. And Don, Don Draculich, he's a super funny dude. He is like, he would talk normal, and then he started going into like the Sleazy P voice. And my son's like, oh God. Like, I think that was maybe like 2018, 2000. No, was it 2017? It was so long ago. The years blend together. But
so the wrestling fan in me has to ask this question to my audience. They're like, you give us enough wrestling, but like, do you still follow the product? And if it, or who are some of the ones that you're growing up with that were like your favorite wrestlers?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I follow the most right now is like Dark Side of the Ring, that whole like documentary series.
Tales of the Territory. Look up that one.
Is that like a new one? Or?
People. It was only for like a season. I hope they pick it back up, but it's made by the same people. But instead of so much like focusing on one person, it's a bunch of stories of like the AWA and the NWA and like Georgia and Mid Georgia South, and it's like Butcher Vachon opened up a plane door on a prop plane at 30,000 feet. You're like, what?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. The Tales of the, if you like the old school stuff, Tales of the Territory. That's what we try to do with our Tornado Tag podcast. Is like we just did an episode on Butcher, Dick the Bruiser and Crusher. We did like Sputnik Monroe. Like we try to bring those. Ole Anderson next. Like we try to do those old school ones because their stories are so bonkers. Like
I love the story behind like just the whole industry side of it. I mean, obviously like they come out and they're in the ring and they're doing it, but like being a kid, like I kind of remember there was a weird point where I'm like, oh, wait a minute, they're not actually hitting each other. And you're like, oh, wrestling's fake. No, it's not. They're still getting hit. They're still doing these crazy, like when Mankind got thrown off that ring in Hell in the Cell, that's real. Like the dude hits the tape, like that is
when Rock hit him 14 times or 17 times with a chair to the head.
Yes, and that's like
chair. Yeah.
And just as a kid, I mean, I follow it as far as like, you know, like the Ric Flair, show or the documentary that came out about Ric Flair. Like I checked that out. I had like the WWE channel, I think, for a little bit on. Did they sell it to Paramount or something like that?
Peacock.
Peacock. So I went back and was watching all these old like Monday Night Raws, like the Attitude Era. Like I grew up with that, like because I was like a teenager when that came out, and you just like this, like Stone Cold, like filling Vince's his Corvette with like cement, or driving the Coors Light truck out and just blowing beer all over everybody.
Tomorrow is 316 day.
It is. Oh, that's right. It is. Oh,
I'm doing a video game stream where I'm gonna just have a bunch of beers in a Stone Cold cooler, and
nice.
The new video game came out, so I'm gonna put the new game on, and I'm gonna play a Stone Cold in the universe mode and just drink beers all day.
That's great. That's awesome. But yeah, no, I that's about. I haven't seen like any like newer stuff. But growing up, it was the WWF was, it was the WWF then. It was huge. But man, I remember like WCW. I'm like, man, these guys want it bad. Like these guys really want it.
Very similar now. Like there's WWE, which is on Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and then you have AEW that's on Wednesday. AEW is like the new WCW, like they're the next competition, but they're just like way more. It's like the cruiserweight division back in the old school WCW days, where it was like they were higher flyer and they took more risks. And then like you have TNA, which is back and doing crazy stuff. Then the whole independent wrestling scene is getting a spotlight that never had before. Like pro wrestling is massive now. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and it kind of seems like WWE's not clearly with AEW. They're not like the only game in town anymore. So there's kind of like room to expand. There's even like local promotions in like Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo that do shows that I've actually gone to see. And it's really cool. Like people are, and it's awesome to watch these people go out there and do it because like they're professional. And they're really good at it, and it's super fun to watch live. And it's definitely something that I want to get my son to. There was there was one that happened not that long ago too, and I should have took him to it. But
it's getting huge in New York. Like it's
it's pretty neat. And then even like AEW, like I've been kind of following like Cody Rhodes and stuff like that, like following some of that.
Well, now he's back in WWE.
Yeah, I get confused. Like I don't follow it. So I'm like, wait a minute, no, that's. That's
AEW. He got fired from WWE, went to Japan and started doing ROH, and then ROH collapsed, and then him and a bunch of other wrestlers got a money guy who his dad owns the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Started
AEW, and then he left AEW, went back to WWE.
That's crazy.
Wow, it's crazy. Wrestling is insane.
Yeah, and then I think like Vince McMahon is clearly on the way out now.
Oh yeah, well he's gone.
He's done.
Gone completely and possibly going to jail forever. For all the stories that we've seen on TV during the Attitude Era, they might have been real.
They could have been real. Yeah. And then like him buying, they ended up buying up like Dark Side of the Ring, right? Just kind of like hush people up to be like, all right, man, calm down. Like you're talking too much shit about Vince, but growing up though, it was such a cool thing growing up because you had like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, and it was like, yeah, this is great, but man, as soon as you got to like The Rock and like the Attitude Era, like NWO. You're just like, oh, this is off the rails, amazing. It was so good.
It was Jerry Springer every week on wrestling.
Oh yeah, there's like Brock Lesnar throwing a kid in a wheelchair downstairs, and you're like, I shouldn't
missing a leg.
Yes, I shouldn't be applauding this, but this is phenomenal. This is great.
That's so much fun. All right, the final question here, and listen, I'll get to the pleasantries here, but your Mount Rushmore of Cryptonaut creatures. Who's your Mount Rushmore?
Man, all right, so my favorite all time, you can kind of see in the back, like right. I can't figure out there. Okay, you see right there? Yep.
Yes.
The Flatwoods Monster is my favorite of all of them for sure. I love that encounter. That I don't know. I mean, it's an alien, it's a cryptid, it's an interdimensional being. No one really knows, so we definitely got the Flatwoods Monster. For just the sake of my sanity, Mothman, for sure, because Mothman has to be there. It's just one of those things that. I mean, that series was so long and so in depth, and that wasn't even the entire thing. There was still more to it. I'm trying to think. And then probably definitely Sam the Sandown Ghost Clown for sure. How many people are on Mount Rushmore? 4,
I think,
right?
4.
Yeah, 4. I'm trying to think. Okay, so I got dude. I don't want to be that guy, but like Bigfoot. Bigfoot's fine.
Have to really.
But I wouldn't put Bigfoot on Mount Rushmore at all. I would go for like the Potosi, the Potosi sheep slayer or something really weird like that. Like, yeah.
All my episodes are blending together, but the last one I listened to was the one where the guy just got through a divorce. It hit too close to home at that time for me too, because I was going through most of it. But like he just went through a divorce, but him and his dog moved out to a trailer, and this like creature kept like stalking his trailer.
Yes.
It murdered his dog.
It killed his dog. Yeah. Oh man, that's right. Yeah, it was like supposed to be some weird like possible Bigfoot creature. Like Bigfoot stuff is cool. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but it's kind of like the ghost show of cryptozoology, because like there's so many different variations of it, but nobody ever gets into like skunks, like a skunk ape, or like the Honey Island swamp monster, or like an Oran Pendek. They're just like, yeah, no, it's just Bigfoot. You go like knock on wood and see if they're there. That's the one cryptid that like is fine. It's cool, but like we very rarely do like a hairy hominid one, because it's not just strictly a Bigfoot. It's always some weird, like the Murfreesboro mud monster or something. Yeah. Always like some like weird one. Which I think we have one coming up actually. It's like a breaking and entering, like a home invasion with a Bigfoot. Which is
do you guys have any crazy stuff up where you're from? Like something that you're known for in that area, like a cryptid or a ghost or paranormal thing?
I mean, we had. At Mays Point, there was a thing. There was it's supposed to be like a serpent, call it like the Mays Point. What is it? Fish. That ended up being like a sturgeon, which is kind of neat. But there's actually Rob's mom. We had to do this story eventually, because Rob's mom may have seen this when she was younger in I think it's Cuga Lake. It's called like Old Greenie. It's supposed to be like another like serpent type thing. But up in Buffalo, especially like Tonawanda, we used to get a lot of reports of people seeing like devil monkeys, like more than one person seeing a devil monkey in Tonawanda. I was like, very specific, extreme, to the point that we actually like reached out to the DEC. We're like, I don't know if you guys know about this or not, but there's people in Tonawanda that are seeing devil monkeys, which is a super weird hybrid between like an ape and a dog and a kangaroo. They're terrifying sounding, but
we have the Butler gargoyle, like in Northeast Pennsylvania.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
we have that one. And then our big claim to fame, where we're from, is it's more of a ghost thing, but the Jim Thorpe prison with the handprint on the wall. That's I actually got to record inside that prison.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
pretty fun.
Pennsylvania is full of a ton of really cool like cryptid stuff. We have
squonk is the best.
The squonk. Yeah, it just cries like
it turns into puddles.
Yeah, it does totally. So a good buddy of ours, Cole Harold, is from Pennsylvania, and he covers a ton of stuff out there. Like we've got one coming up. The Bluefield frog oil is coming up. It's super cool. It's really neat. There's like the Chickies Hill mummy. Pennsylvania's low. Actually, I think Stan Gordon is out there, if I'm not mistaken. He's out there in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is like really close to like Ohio as far as like strangeness. Like there is a ton of weird stuff out there for sure.
The one I want to do the most is it's in Jersey. Obviously, the Jersey Devil is always cool to kind of like.
I love the Jersey Devil. It's the only reason I even like the hockey team.
Yeah, Clinton Road. I want to drive Clinton Road.
My son, for the longest time, was obsessed with Clinton Road. The fact that he made him and I sit down and do a podcast about it.
Yeah, please do.
Seriously, like, well, I think it might be on Patreon actually.
Yeah, we did one a while ago of Clinton Road, and it was just like every time it could get weirder, it did. Like there was like it's possibly Klan members, and there's like a building that appears once a year, and then there's a ghost truck and a ghost boy and aliens. You're like, everything's on this road. It's
dude, I love when you get to stuff like that because it's almost like is it a window area that's like just opening up and like a bunch of like weird stuff's happening there, or is it just like an odd like vortex or something? It's kind of far from us, but in Watertown, New York, they have a thing called the Watertown Vortex, which is where people apparently it's a certain park. I forget the name of the park. We actually interviewed this woman like years ago on our old podcast. I should probably put that interview up. Actually, it's pretty cool. Where people actually are like walking and they like step into like a different like realm or like in a form of existence. I guess it's supposed to be like a totally different like world there. What's kind of cool though that kind of ties that back is that Watertown was originally the name of, I think it was Area 51 because Dulles is from Watertown, like New York, like up here. So they actually named Area 51 originally was called Watertown because that's what he was like running it at the time. And there's like a huge like air base up there and everything. But yeah, I mean, there's like locally, there's a bunch of like cool, like haunted stuff. We have like a pretty old graveyard, it's called like Fort Hill Cemetery. There's supposed to be some cool, like, haunting things out there. Rob and Chris have been out there a couple of times.
We have Gettysburg too, and that's
always, huge, man. There you go.
Piss off everyone we talk Gettysburg. I'm like, they're actually not Gettysburg's ghosts. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's been too long ago. The ghosts now are actually the reenactors who have died. So you're just seeing reenactors.
That's great. The reenactors.
Because there's been so many reenactors, you don't think like some of them like, and because they always say that ghosts latch on to what they love the most.
Yeah.
So imagine if like 1,000 reenactors have died and they loved it so much that they called Gettysburg as reenactors.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, no, they would totally be there. That's great. Oh, that's funny.
The reenactment ghost.
Yeah, and then we have a couple other like random things here, but yeah, I mean it's it's nothing nearly as cool as that for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, where can people find? Obviously, just search the Cryptonaut podcast. But where can people find and support you guys? And what days do episodes air for people that want to tune in for the first time?
Yeah, so we're available wherever you get your podcasts at, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or like YouTube. The Cryptonautpodcast.com will kind of connect you to everything. You can join the Patreon there, which is patreon.com/Cryptonautpodcast. Our bonus audio episodes come out on Sundays around like 10 in the morning. And our regular episodes drop on Mondays. So we kind of like do the Monday deal, which, now years later, I'm like, man, Monday is not a great day because there's a bunch of holidays that happen on Mondays and people generally aren't at work listening to podcasts, which is a majority of our
driving
people.
In their car to a location. And
it's true.
Yeah.
It's funny because on holidays, I do see a pretty decent drop where I'm like, oh no, it's a Monday. No one's at work, but it picks up the next day. Sundays are bonus audios. Mondays is the standard episode. You can check it out there. But yeah, Cryptonautpodcast.com will bring you to everything that we have. We are starting to do more video content on YouTube. And of course, like the social medias, like Instagram is the best way to go. If you just check us out on Instagram, where every week we post all the episode information up there and do stuff. And if you do want to support the show, which is super cool, we have like a whole Discord community, and thankfully our mods on Discord taught me how to use Discord. I'm not really sure how to still use it.
It's hard.
Really,
I had to build mine from scratch twice.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where like, thank God they know how to do this stuff, because I'm like trying to figure out bots and how to get things to work, and I'm just like, I don't understand roles or any of this stuff. Like old man yells at Discord.
That's super cool.
Yeah, there's a Cryptonaut podcast.
And the merch game is on point. I love
thank
the
you.
art. I think my two favorite shirts is the Union shirt with the devil in it.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
obviously the Heller Space. I have the red version with the little alien, the Baphomet in there.
Oh yeah, that was a weird mashup that I randomly did. I had like a picture of Baphomet, and then I had like a gray alien. And I'm like, I can make this work. I used to be a graphic designer, so I'm like, oh,
it's
I
really
can
good shirt. I own it. It's my favorite shirt.
I love that design too. Even like the devil, like for like the International Occult Laborers Union. Like Rob's an amazing illustrator, and him and I have worked on stuff before. And I'm like, this is what I need from you. Just do this. And he nailed it the first time, and I was like,
yeah,
perfect.
It's so good. But yeah, definitely go grab that merch and support. And yeah, man, I really appreciate your time and stepping away and doing this. I know you're super busy with your content as well as life. So yeah, for you to come do this means a lot. I'm a huge fan of what you guys do. Send the boys my love, and
definitely will do.
And keep rocking, man. The podcast is fantastic. Everyone who's listening to this, go check it out. Even if you're not into the cryptozoology or you think it's all bunk, the humor of them, and if you're into pro wrestling or pop culture, that's thrown in there as well. It's a really fun listen. It's a really good time. I try not to listen to a lot of mainstream podcasts. I listen to more of the people, everyday people who are recording and putting their stuff out there. And Cryptonaut's on my list every time. It's one of my top ones, and I've been doing it and they have a lot of content you can dive into. I've been trying to listen to all of it, and it's overwhelming, but it's always a good time.
Yeah, I think we're over like 300 episodes, and then we're over like 200 on Patreon, so we're hitting close to like almost 5 something. But but thank you so much for your checking out the show and supporting them. It's awesome to be able to talk with listeners, people that like dig it. Super cool, because for the most part, I'm just a dad that works at a wastewater plant that occasionally talks to my friends, and I'm just like, people like what I do. I don't know, it's weird. So I appreciate it though. It's awesome.
I'm bringing some other content in where I do pop culture reviews where we talk about a movie or something you're into. And cool. I'm doing a beer one as well, where we come in and talk about a beer we're drinking, and we just kind of, nice. So I'd love to have you back on if you're ever free.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
If you guys ever need help with the StreamYard, or, hey, we have a mic question or something, hit me up. I want to make your stuff look and sound better because I enjoy consuming it as well. So if you
awesome.
ever need
I appreciate that. That's awesome. And thanks so much for having me on, man. I appreciate it. This is a super fun time. It was awesome.
Thank you so much. Well, that'll do it for the ABJ podcast. Make sure you check out the links below to follow the Cryptonaut podcast. Hit up that YouTube page. Everyone who's watching this on YouTube, go follow their page. Give them a subscribe because the video content is coming, and you can listen to it on YouTube or via any podcast platform. That their community is amazing. Their Discord community is amazing. And I think you can get into the Discord for as little as $1 on Patreon.
Yeah,
it's a great community. They have a Facebook one as well. Everyone there is insanely welcoming. But that's pretty much all I got. That's going to do it for us this time. We'll see you on the next episode. Here's some music by the Converse Kid. We're out of here.
Thanks for watching this presentation. Like, share, and subscribe for more.